Welcome to EDTalks. Really excited. I know I say that a lot, but it's true every time, actually. I just have great friends and great people as guests. And today's certainly no different. As I introduced my colleague, it was kind of funny because we were just talking about naming conventions and things like that. I'm much better at your last name, but I'm going to go with Sara Vaezy.
Thank
Pretty
you.
close.
You're very close.
It's a beautiful name, and I don't want to mess people's names up, and so I want to get it right. But everyone knows you, and you lead strategy digital for Providence, and you've been around for a little while up there. We're going to talk about that and jump into that. So super excited. And I think the first time we met in person, and if I'm wrong, I mean definitely correct me, but it was at the Cleveland Clinic. So
Yes.
we served on a panel together. So we were doing a panel on innovation. I was like, we need to get her down from Providence. And you came down. And I remember it was a great panel. I think we were doing, the annual sort of innovations in healthcare. And I think it might have been 2018 or so, if I
Yes.
remember.
I think you're right. It was right 2018, 2019, something like
Yeah.
that. Yep.
And then we reconnected during the pandemic because we formed this group of chief digital officers because there really wasn't much out there at the time, and it was a pandemic, so it wasn't like you can get together with people, and there was different professional organizations kind of toying with the idea of digital officers. So we went out there. It was like 12 or 13 of us. We kind of created our own thing, and we did a couple of virtual conferences, which were really good. They were very well attended. But as the pandemic ended and the digital officer became more ubiquitous, there really wasn't a need anymore. And so that kind of quieted down. But I've always watched you and the incredible things that you do at Providence with your team and for the region and for the country. So I really appreciate that. Tell me, let's start off like this. Tell me about the best customer experience you've had in the last year. It doesn't have to be healthcare, just, in general, like customer experience.
Um, I was kind of thinking about this, and I have a 5-year-old son, and I buy a lot of things for him that are educational, and it sounds kind of silly, but I bought an app for him that's called Lingo Kids, and it's like a subscription service, and they are so good at like sending me one simple email every now and then with like all the relevant things I need to know. And some of the stuff is like, print this out and you get to like draw or whatever. So they bridge like the physical and the digital. It's really tailored, and also like it happens that their product is really fun and my son really likes it, and so I get to distract him from what he really wants to do, which is watch random things on YouTube. And I don't even know how he managed to find that. So I would say that one tops my list.
Yeah, that's good. And we'll probably jump a little bit into that sort of thinking in terms of where you get some of your own ideas that you bring back to the workplace. What about, speaking of kids, is there something that your parents sort of forced you to do that at the time you're like, I really don't want to do this? But now, today, you look back and say, I'm glad they kind of made me go down that path.
Yeah, totally not technology related, of course, but I played piano. I still play piano. I was a classically trained piano player, and it was something I started out like having an interest in doing, and then as the years went on, and it was like, practice 2 hours a day, and it became kind of a chore. And so I tried to quit many times and they didn't let me. And I'm very happy that they didn't, because it's a great thing to have and just something to be able to do for myself.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I would imagine music probably tops the list for most people. Like, my parents forced me to do this, but now, yeah, as an adult, you're glad you can go up to piano, just impromptu, and start playing, and
Yep.
also get some of your own downtime. So you've been with Providence for a little while. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal and professional journey?
Sure. Yeah, I've been at Providence for 8 years almost. In January, it'll be 8 years. And as you noted at the beginning, Ed, I serve as the Chief Digital Officer and the Chief Strategy Officer, and I can tell a little bit more about that momentarily. I was actually in management consulting, but in healthcare prior to coming to Providence, and the circumstances for coming to Providence were very, sort of serendipitous. I really enjoyed the place I was working at before. It's a firm called Chartis, great people, really smart, based out of Chicago. And But I happened to find my way to Providence and work with the former chief digital officer, Aaron Martin, who was a great mentor and sponsor for me. But I worked, in management consulting, it's like pure healthcare, mostly provider side. A lot of work in enterprise strategy and population health. And then before that, I was in health policy. So I worked for a variety of state agencies in Washington State where I lived, the Office of the Insurance Commissioner, the Healthcare Authority, on a bunch of different sort of health services research, health policy initiatives, including High-Tech Act related work, early medical home related work for Medicaid beneficiaries in the state. And then before that, I was a research scientist for a med tech company in the therapeutic ultrasound space. So I've spent my whole career in healthcare or healthcare adjacent, and I just really love it. And was able to bring a lot of that healthcare background to this kind of unique role where we're bringing technology and combining it with care delivery within the context of our system, which, we hear a lot of sort of, big tech is going to disrupt healthcare, or, other companies like, smaller tech companies are going to kind of disrupt it. And you really can't do it unless you understand the business and you understand like what it is that you're doing and how it touches people's lives, patient and clinician lives. So I was able to bring some of that into our digital work.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Well, tell us a little bit about Craft Hot Sauce, because if someone looks you up, they're going to find, yes, you're the chief of strategy, chief of digital, and Craft Hot Sauce. Tell us about that.
That's true. Short story. We have a small family-run hot sauce company that we built because we wanted to eat something delicious and healthy, and a hot sauce that didn't just like make your taste buds like on fire and you couldn't taste anything else. So we built a hot sauce company called Yeah Boy. And it's really good. It's good for you. It doesn't have any chemicals in it. And we put it on everything. And we have 3 different kinds of hot sauce.
Very cool. So like, could I look that up and actually order some, or do I have to be in Seattle?
No, you can order it. Actually, the majority of our sales are online. So yeahboysauce.com.
Okay, and spell Yeah Boy.
YEAHBOY sauce.com.
Okay. You'll be ringing some sales today after
Sweet.
after this. So no, I love that. And I always love supporting family-owned businesses and stuff too. It's like it's pretty cool. Now, in addition to everything you just mentioned, you also serve on boards and advisory boards and do some startup work. So give us a little flavor about all those different things.
Yeah, I think it's important to really connect the dots in healthcare. I mean, that's a lot of what I do on a daily basis in my, kind of standard operating role as well, from a strategy and digital perspective. We have a lot of great things out there in the industry, but they don't work very well together. And that's the result of that has been sort of this like fragmented system that the payment mechanisms don't really support the delivery mechanisms. This like vast trove of data isn't really available to use, so a lot of what we have in terms of challenges for our industry are because of fragmentation and the dots aren't being connected. So I try to do that in the work that I do with boards, whether they're as an observer for one of our incubated companies called DexCare, which is like an access optimization platform. I also serve as a board director at the NCQA, the National Committee for Quality Assurance, which is a fascinating organization. They do a lot of measurement. I'm not a measurement person, but I have learned a lot from them in terms of just like sort of the core of what it means to measure quality in healthcare and then deliver it back to organizations. So trying to, both learn and then bring sort of my own unique perspective to these things. In order to connect the dots to the best of my ability.
Yeah, I think you're a great role model to all of us. Just like you're saying, you have to engage in these different areas, and then you're able to connect all those dots, as opposed to just being, some people are like really hyper focused just on one thing and in a silo, and that's good maybe for a short period of time, but you really want to connect the dots, as you say.
Yeah, some folks, getting deep is important too, and we need all of it, right? We
Yes.
need folks that go very deep, and we need folks that work kind of horizontally and try to bring the pieces together.
Yeah, very well said. So I'm really curious on the strategy piece, and I love the creativity of your role. So tell us a little bit more about that. Like, how did that come about? Because usually, right, strategy is separate from digital, and there might sometimes be friction, which can be good. But tell us how it all came together.
Well, so I initially served as a chief digital officer, and throughout our development and with our the leadership of Rod Hochman, who's our CEO at Providence, we had initially had what we call like a 3Ds framework. It was digitize, deconstruct, and diversify. Digitize is fairly obvious, but and fairly expansive, right? It's everything from what our chief information officer BJ Moore does, which is modernizing our system and kind of building in the core infrastructure that the system needs to be able to run in the current century and in the next century. And as well as the work that we did from a digital consumer perspective, sort of from a front end standpoint. So digitize, relatively obvious. Deconstruct is, most health systems have historically been sort of, everything was very sort of embedded from a business perspective in acute care lines of business. But really, if we deconstruct those out of the acute care, they can be more functional, more effective in terms of their role in delivery or financing. And so we've systematically sort of pulled lines of business out of their acute embedding throughout the system and created things like a Providence clinical network or a home and community care division. And all of these things exist both in tandem with the acute care as well as standalone. And then the last is diversification. It's something we've been on a journey of for quite some time, and I think many other health systems have as well, which is, care delivery has so many economic pressures that you can't rely on it solely for from an economic perspective. So those we had, and as we started to kind of move more and more into living into these 3D strategies, when Rod and I were talking, it became very evident that the mechanisms by which our system functions will increasingly rely on technology. The way by which we do care delivery may look different because of technology. We may need to change our portfolio. And so knitting together this sort of future-oriented view around what's coming and in particular, the role of technology within that, and linking it to strategy, as well as sort of just the core business model, which a lot of, as you know, a lot of like digital work, digital consumer work relies on those different business models. They all needed to kind of come together. So we built this kind of more holistic role around strategy and digital, and then expanded our concept of the construct for our strategy beyond those 3Ds to 3 additional areas. One is data and AI. No conversation these days around technology is complete without both the concept of generative AI, but also just none of it really functions without solid data. And so how we build data collectives, we have a strategy and a company that that we're a part of called Truveta, which is one of the largest data collectives in the world. And we're with 35 plus other health systems involved in this effort. And then we have a very comprehensive strategy around how we're really deploying generative AI across our system, both in terms of the technology infrastructure around, the foundational elements like cloud and the data platform, but also as well as like homegrown innovations and other platform partners that we have. But also then what do you apply it to, right? Really, like it all comes down to what do you apply it to in order to make some of those changes. So we've got that piece in place. And then the next element of it is delivery of care is actually going to look different. And one really great example of that is something that our chief nursing officer has championed, which is our co-caring virtual nursing model. We have also done a tremendous amount of work around things like remote patient monitoring or hospital at home. And then my team, from a digital consumer perspective, has launched actually our fourth incubated technology around driving sort of personalized experiences across the system. So delivery of care is another big area that's going to look very different. And then lastly, all of this, like the technological advancements that are occurring, are rooted deeply in new diagnostics and therapeutics, and they can power different types of care delivery experiences as well. So it's incumbent upon us to stay ahead of the science, or at least with the science, so that we're not falling behind. So that's how we thought about it, kind of bringing both the digital and the strategy pieces together, but also the construct for the system.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that framework of that construct, and it makes a lot of sense, and it's easy to memorize as well with all the D's. So that's cool. What recommendation would you give to, right? You're a very unique situation, and the idea of bringing the two together is just fabulous. For those that don't have that, what's the best way to work with strategy? So if you think about, before you had both, in the ideal circumstance, how should, a CDO approach working with strategy?
I think the best thing that a CDO can do is, even if you can't do, sort of high level corporate strategy from a, diversification or deconstruction, or, really get into digital and AI, at least link it to market strategy and do things. And most, CSOs do that. And we actually happen to have a CSO also who's very focused on care delivery at our system. And he and I work very closely together because he's very deep in that domain. And knowing, for instance, where do we want to grow, and how do we then deploy digital resources, marketing resources, new technology enablement around how we're doing, what we're doing in our inpatient rooms and our settings around ambient technology, for instance, linking those things. So one, we can find the biggest opportunities. Two, we're not just dabbling in all sorts of stuff, right? There's actually like a reason for being. And then three, we can actually, kind of translate that into getting things done. Ideas are so cheap, like, anybody can come up with them. I could pontificate, but that's not the value in having me around, right? The idea is to actually get something done. So working hand in hand to understand the market strategy and then linking that would be a great place for folks to start. And within the context of the consumer digital work that we do, it's actually everything front end. So it includes marketing, it includes digital experience, which is our channels, so web and mobile. It includes how we do search and discoverability. And so connecting all those dots with strategy is essential.
Yeah, no, that's really good counsel. Where do you get your ideas for innovation, transformation, disruption? Obviously, working with your colleagues, talked just now about strategy, but like on a more personal level, like just how does it? Maybe there's not a formula, but how does it kind of happen for you?
Maybe I'll put it this way, like a couple resources that I leverage. There are a lot of groups out there that are either within industry or ideally across different industries. And I participate in a group called Digital 50, where I actually learn from other chief digital officers about what are they doing. And for instance, I've learned a lot from a chief digital officer at Avery Dennison, right? Like, how are they thinking about inventory management,
Right.
and tracking of like hard products, or I've spoken with folks at Nike, or I've learned from folks in the energy industry, and we actually have a lot of common themes. So let's take energy, for instance. With it used to be all oil and gas, and it was fairly simple. But with all of the new types of energy out there, solar and other renewables, the environment has gotten a lot more complex, a lot more fragmented, a lot more different types of suppliers, and tracking all of this is very challenging. And so that's very similar to what we're going through in healthcare, very decentralized and fragmented, and tracking all of it is much more difficult than, there used to be one hospital, and you did everything was like between hospitals. So I spend a lot of time learning from others in other industries as well as in healthcare, because our experiences and the problems we're dealing with in healthcare are, I don't know if I would necessarily call them unique, but they require expertise and some, sort of deep understanding of the regulatory environment, the payment environment, and those types of things. I read voraciously. I read everything I can possibly get my hands on, and spend a lot of time trying to find, again, within both like common themes across these readings, but also just like building up knowledge to the extent that I can. So for instance, in the case of AI, I'm not a technical person, but I sure as hell can spend a lot of time learning about like its business applications and the key issues that that matter as we kind of chart, uncharted territory. And then the last thing I would say is I listen to as many people as I can. Like I will, just sit down and like anytime Rod talks, I will take notes, in detail, just because I want to capture it all. And then it's a lot of it, again, it's just about like capturing things and connecting the dots. So that's the approach that I take.
Yeah, again, really good counsel, getting a lot of golden nuggets. And that's what we want to do for our listeners who are taking the time to watch. You want to give them stuff, and you've already dropped a lot of good stuff on us. Let me switch over to leadership as we sort of wind down a little bit. What happened, or something happened or help prepare you for your role today that probably, maybe it's unrelated, but now that you look back, it's like, wow, that experience or that event that sort of helped me, achieve the things I'm doing today?
A couple of things I would highlight. Working in consulting was very helpful for me because it really taught me some of the hard skills, like, hard analysis and how to work with data and how to tell a good story. Like all of those things were really helpful. But also, I would say most importantly, it taught me how to listen to the needs of a client, and deeply understanding someone's needs, even if they don't say it, but they're sort of varied or you're reading between the lines, is extremely valuable. So that was a really important skill. That it's a softer skill, but I was able to kind of learn that over 6 years of working in consulting. And then the other thing, we have a lot of concepts within Providence around how we embody our mission and our vision and our values, both with our teams as well as within our communities and with our patients and clinicians. And the thing that has resonated with me the most is this notion of what we call like the Sacred Heart. And it's just like basically what it comes down to is leading with love.
Yeah.
And a Sacred Heart is an open heart. And it's just, I have deep love, and I would genuinely call it love, not just like, oh, I like these people, but love for the people that I work with. Seeing them on a very human level and working together to get our goals accomplished, I think is like actually a lot of fun when I can bring that love every day.
Yeah, that I love that. Again, not to reuse your word, but that's awesome. That's the type of culture where innovation and disruption thrives. When you're in that safe, loved environment, it's really cool. We could do a whole session on that. Let me finish up by just asking you because you've already gave us so many great tips, but how do you sort of refresh yourself and stay, I won't use the word balanced, integrated, in harmony, those sort of things? Do you have any words of wisdom on, some techniques you may use?
A couple things on this one too. One is I am pretty intentional about like sucking at certain things. Like I can't do everything well, and I'm not okay with it, but I try to be at peace with it. And certain things I just don't do. And so focus. And that was another thing that I spent a lot of time with my team on, was just to say, like, we got to focus. Here's where we can have the most impact within our organization, as well as within, sort of more broadly across the industry. So focusing on the things that are most important. And then I play a lot. I have a lot of fun with my son. I have a lot of fun I try to get outside and just play. I'm not a great like, oh, I gotta go for a run, but I do like love chasing him around or climbing at a park or something like that. So have some fun and play.
Yeah, no, you're an awesome leader, an awesome person, and I really appreciate you spending time on Ed Talks. One final thing, we covered a lot of ground, and is there something that we missed or anything you want to double down on? I'll give you the last word as we close out.
Maybe the last thing I would say is I think as everybody on Earth, we've gone through a lot over the last almost 4 years, and healthcare has certainly gone through a lot, and the folks that work in healthcare, especially folks who work on the front lines, have gone through a lot. Patients have gone through a lot, and it can be a lot like doom and gloom. But I think that I'm pretty optimistic, or maybe cautiously optimistic that we can work together to get through it. And I think a lot of the pieces are getting in place now, whether it be like kind of attitudinal in terms of folks recognizing that we have to partner together instead of be adversarial. Some of the technology pieces are coming together. Folks are at least aware of a lot of the issues around workforce and trying to, do their best to serve caregivers. So I'm optimistic, and I hope other people can be optimistic too. I don't know if there's a way out if we're not.
Yeah, no, that's well said. And I think after watching this, everyone will be pretty optimistic. So thanks again for being our guest on Ed Talks.
Thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. And yeah, really appreciate you. And so thank you also to our audience for sticking with us and for watching. I know you have a lot of different shows you can watch, but we appreciate the fact that you're with us.